This is all going to be about communication, education, but communication. And I saw one of the waggle comments was, it can't just be bottom up, it has to be top down. Yes, but top down responds to bottom up. And so the community outreach and the actions of the community members, the stakeholders, the people who are on the ground dealing with the experiences as conveyed to their legislators, to their elected officials, to their mayors, to their council people, that finds its way up farther into the state government. And oh, by the way, you can write letters to the governor, you can write letters to the state, you can call and express an opinion. There is a community services line that takes notes, answers your questions, responds to you. And those things are tracked every week. You should know that. Every week at the deputies meeting that I sit in when I'm there, we get a report on comments that have come from around the state on a whole host of issues, what they're about, who is responding, what the kinds of questions are, and the volume. So you will get an answer, and your voice will be heard, and it will be reported. This is a valuable communications tool because I can tell you that the more times people hear the same message coming from the bottom up, coming from the community up, the more they tend to pay attention. A point of reference. So I've been at the state for a year. I'm a retired surface warfare officer, drove ships 31 years for the Navy. When I retired, I decided I'd go back to school and get a little more education. I went to William & Mary and got an MBA, and while I was doing that, I had an opportunity to work on as a volunteer on a pilot project here in the Hampton Roads region, looking at whole of government and community solutions to dealing with climate impact, particularly sea level rise on Hampton Roads. I was bitten by the bug. It seemed fascinating. There wasn't a lot of understanding. There seemed to be so much to be done, and there just wasn't enough action. And so I stayed with it. Worked with the Center for Climate and Security in Washington, D.C., nonpartisan think tank, looking at and talking about climate impact as a national security issue. It turns out one of the most compelling cases for that is right here in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Being able to tell that story resonated, and so I stayed with it. Along comes an opportunity to take this position with the governor's staff, and so now I have a new experience communicating as well, doing a lot of outreach with the community, the 8 coastal planning districts that are considered coastal Virginia, which stretch from northern Virginia through Richmond, down to Hampton Roads, and up through the Eastern Shore. 3 of those planning districts are rural coastal planning districts, Northern Neck, Middle Peninsula, and Accomack, Northampton County, which is the Eastern Shore. The rest are all what I would call urban, suburban, or industrial. The 2 that will be impacted the most and the soonest are Hampton Roads and the Eastern Shore. That should come to no surprise of any of you here, especially considering the compelling stories that you've heard this afternoon. So, we have a lot of work to do at the state level. The state has been reluctant to take this on as a challenge that it must deal with near term. An awful lot of people in the state of Virginia, 5.3 million of them live in the urban crescent from Fairfax down to Hampton Roads, but all the rest live in the western part of the state, where they do, by the way, have significant flooding issues. Who knows where the greatest loss of life, not a very happy topic, but who knows where the greatest loss of life in the state of Virginia from flooding took place? Nelson County. Hi, Judy. Thank you for the answer. Judy Hinch, ladies and gentlemen, and she is correct. Nelson County, early 60s, Hurricane Camille, 160 people died in 8 hours. We received from 24 to 31 inches of rain during that period of time in Nelson County. So we have flooding problems around the state in Virginia. The only town that's ever been relocated in Virginia, who knows where that is, as a result of flooding? Judy? No? Grundy. Appalachia, western part of the state. It was a riverine town, flooded out, almost demolished, relocated in a different location. So, 2 examples that the state should take heart and think about, that this is a coastal problem, but it's also a riverine problem. This is a rain problem, but it's also a sea level rise problem. And the point I want you to take away from that is that we can make a lot of progress in the state of Virginia when we work together as a state to think about how this issue impacts us broadly and how we can move forward. But we do need to take action and start to move forward. So I think I will hold there and wait for questions. I can talk about executive orders and actions the Northam administration would like to do, but I'll wait and take your questions. Thank you.
Let me kick it off with a question or two. When the United States announced that we were going to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement in 2017, more than 1,000 United States mayors wrote a letter to the conveners of that conference and said, we're still in. That became the name of the group, we're still in. There are now 3,500 or more chief executive officers, mayors, governors, other people at that level who have said, we're still in. Can you imagine how the effect of that group could be brought to bear pointedly in this region and in the state of Virginia? Can you imagine how examples could be drawn from what is being done here and what needs to be done here that would be impactful for this group of 3,500?
So Virginia is still in, and Norfolk is still in. There are 5 other cities, and I can't name them all. Blacksburg is one. I think Alexandria, Arlington. Somebody fill in the blanks. Someone in the audience probably does know. There are a few others. And so the way that is brought to bear is through talking about it and talking about the actions of those organizations, the actions when Doug, I'm going to pass it to Doug to talk about what Norfolk is doing in that regard. But we have an opportunity now in Virginia, I think, to start to look at some of the broader climate actions required, particularly mitigation, reducing carbon emissions. We tried to get some progress and some traction with the General Assembly over the past few years. Governor McAuliffe teed it up. Governor Northam has carried on. And we weren't able to do it. We were blocked by the General Assembly by law. There is some optimism that we may have an opportunity now to overturn that and to be able to move forward in that context. But I'd like to let Doug talk about the things the city of Norfolk has done because they've been a leader in this area.
Thanks. So it's funny when I tell people what my position is, they say, what is that? Chief Resilience Officer. And so I have to talk about, it's a reactive position. We deal with shocks and stressors, and that's how we become resilient, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a man-made event such as a terrorist attack, earthquake, or a fire. But it's, my position is on the reactive side in many instances, and we're dealing with the effects of on the backside of an issue. So the mayor and city council recognized several years ago that to get on the front side of this, we needed to have a mayoral commission on climate change mitigation and adaptation, which was just they were just signed out their report in May of 2019, and so as one of the strategies of that is we're hiring a sustainability officer to get on the front side of this, which is mainly what this conference and this discussion today has been about. So that individual will come on board here shortly and be looking at how the city as a whole looks at energy use, looks at transportation, building energy efficiency, and the sort of items that will get on the front side of this of the curve, if you will, not on the back side, which is mainly where, in the Office of Resilience that we're focused on. But the mayor and the council members are keenly focused on this. There is not one item that comes before council, whether it's an economic development issue or a transportation or a neighborhood issue that the Office of Resilience and now the Sustainability Officer won't have a seat at that table because they understand the impacts of all our actions are felt across departments. So that's what's happening in Norfolk.
Terrific. I was going to actually ask you a question, so go ahead. Ashley, weigh in.
Well, I was going to say on the student level, with Marlins Go Green, we've participated in a climate strike, and We're promoting like student engagement, to go vote, be active, grassroots organization, just to show where your values are and what matters to you. So, you know, that the government and people that are involved and even just outsiders can see where your interests lie and what's important to you. So we're trying to like promote that within the club as well.